User Yoga Rain. Hadouken!
Alright, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am John, and it has been a minute. Been busy, summer, wedding season. It's sort of my go-to time right now for my business, keeping things a little busy right now. But I just got a new addition into the arcade that I'm very excited about. We're going to get into today. This guy right here. We have the Super Street Fighter 2 Legacy 2 Limited Shinku Hadoken Edition. That's a lot to say. But this is a replacement for my previous Street Fighter 2 Legacy cabinet, which after getting the new Mortal Kombat 2 Legacy, really sort of helped me make that decision, because I really wasn't a fan of the viewing angles on that at all. I thought it was a pretty good looking cabinet, but the viewing angles weren't the best. And just in comparison to having Killer Instinct and that Mortal Kombat 30th standing next to it, it just seemed way smaller in general. And this new Street Fighter 2 cabinet has the same exact framework as the new MK30th, which I think is just perfect.
Perfect.
You know, that new framework for the fighting cabinets is just like, it's exactly where it needs to be. So whoever was in charge of making that decision over at Arcade1Up, that's an amazing choice. That new control deck, perfect. I have rather large mitts, so as someone with large hands, the surface area for the old Street Fighter 2 Legacy was god-awful. I very rarely played it because it was so uncomfortable. The control deck would be here, and then you'd have like this little ridge on the side that would come up here. So like you're always brushing your hand against it. There wasn't a lot of space on the left to have clearance for, you know, playing around with the joystick and stuff. So you were always working your hand into it. It was super uncomfortable. That's been completely fixed with this new control deck that they started with the MK30th. It's just flawless. And the more I've been playing with my MK30th, the more it's just the more it makes me wish that the Killer Instinct cabinet would do the same thing. I'm not even talking about like the Pro Line edition, because like I don't really want that, because I know the Pro Line edition is going to have that, but again, it changes the form factor. All my other cabinets are the 3/4 scale. Like I'm just too far into it at this point to change. But if they were to re-release Killer Instinct with a control deck that is the same as the new MK30th and the new Street Fighter 2 Legacy, I would totally buy Killer Instinct again and go through all the upgrades and that whole process again, just to have that same control deck, because it's so good. The one on Killer Instinct now isn't terrible. It's much better than the old Street Fighter one was, but it's also not great. You know, it still sits up higher. It doesn't have the angle. This new control deck's great. It sits at an angle. It has so much more real estate for your hand to work around in the joystick and the buttons. So it's very comfortable for extended periods of time with long gameplay. I just love it. I think it's a great control deck, and I'm really excited for that form factor moving forward. You know, they're putting out Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That would be great for that as well. It's just a really comfortable, form-fitting control deck, and you know, it's a great design choice. Like we're at like peak Arcade1Up design here. What are we in, like the 3rd or 4th generation at this point? But like they finally like locked it down. Like it's fantastic. This cabinet in general, I don't really think I have any complaints on this thing, honestly. So we're gonna get into a really in-depth review on this one. I also wanted to talk about upgrades I make to my cabinets. This is something I've been teasing in some of my previous videos. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I had some instances where I just, lost some files, or I forget to record a couple of things in the process, and that is finally not the case here. So I'm going to take you guys on a step-by-step process of all the different mods that I make, including sound system upgrade. All of my cabinets have subwoofers in them and speaker upgrades, all with the exception of Tempest, however. Tempest would not take a subwoofer. It just gives this horrible feedback noise that no matter what you do, it's just something the PCB does not like external subwoofers for some reason. So the only cabinet that does not have a subwoofer right now is my my Tempest cabinet. But we'll show you how to do that, upgrade the speakers, throw a subwoofer in there, how to vinyl over the existing J panel so you can, or the kick plate rather, so that you can put on a light up coin door, which I use a different guy. I use a guy on Etsy called Shelby Rats, and I'll put a link to his page below where you can buy the coin doors. Great dude. 3D prints them himself. He gives you these really cool buttons that click in, and they even have like the traditional like insert 25 cent tags that you used to see in the arcades. It has like a really good feel to it, and they're the perfect size, I think, for these cabinets.
Perfect.
And I just like them a lot more than the stock ones Arcade1Up has been giving out. I prefer these ones. So all my cabinets are outfitted with those. I'll show you how to upgrade those as well. But yeah, let's just get into it. Like, there's so much to cover with this cabinet, and it's such a beautiful piece that I'm gonna gush over this one. I think this is the first release so far that I just don't have. I have like one minor nitpick, and yeah, like it's so minor that it doesn't even really matter. This thing is pretty much perfection.
Perfect.
One other thing we have to talk about with this cabinet is the monitor. In my review for the MK30th, I didn't sugarcoat it at all. I went on record as saying that monitor was absolute garbage. It really was terrible. Yes, it is. It is terrible. But since I put out that video, 19K Fox had released a video on how to replace that monitor, and he gave you a specific model monitor to look up and purchase. I went and did that exact thing, and MK30th is now like the perfect cabinet. I'm so happy with the changes I've made to that cabinet, and that monitor change was huge. That thing is perfect now.
Perfect.
Before, the MK30th had really bad color washout and from the right angle. So anytime you'd move around it, like, it would just wash out really badly. I show some examples of this in my review on the MK30th, which I'll have linked below as well. But ever since I made that change, like, this thing's great now. Like, it doesn't wash out at all. It does wash out from the bottom, but you have to be like sitting on the floor looking up at the monitor, which you are never going to do. So that's the bad angle on that monitor. But like, normal gameplay, extreme right, extreme left, head on, tall, short, like whatever, it's perfect now. The monitor looks great. And one of the things that some people were concerned about with this new Street Fighter was whether or not it would have the same problem with a bad monitor. And rest assured, it does not. It is using the BOE monitors that we've all come to know and love, that have been kind of a staple of the Arcade1Ups the past few generations. Just a really great monitor. Vibrant colors, rich deep blacks. Looks great from any angle. It's just a really solid monitor. It just looks great. Everything looks awesome on this. It's formatted perfectly, so we have like a nice, nice accurate formatting finally. So it's like everything's just like pixel perfect. Looks great. It's fantastic. So they killed it with a monitor. I don't know what the issue was with the 30th. Like, I don't. No one's really gotten a clear answer whether it was like. I'm guessing it had something to do with supply issues, because if you're buying monitors in bulk and we have shortages, I'm sure that tripped up something and they had to make some concessions there. But that's no longer the case. Monitor's great. Looks perfect.
Perfect.
All right. So there's 14 games on this cabinet altogether. There's technically 17 if you count the sports game, because that has like 3 different games in it. Each game also offers the ability to turn the scan lines on or off in the menu. It looks really great, and it's a feature I highly recommend turning on for each game. So Pro Gear is a game I'd never actually heard of before. This is my first time playing it, and it's a really fun side-scrolling shooter, similar to, I don't know, Gradius or any of those old school games that you might have liked back in the day. Really fun to play. Really great sound, too, with this upgraded subwoofer. It sounds like you can really hear the explosions. Everything hits really hard. Sounds awesome. So Pro Wing's another game I'd never heard of before. This is very similar to like 1944, a little more futuristic anime take on that. But it's really fun. This is another one I can see myself really getting sucked into and playing a lot of. This is a really cool game. Another game with these really great sound effects and visuals. Really fun to play. So Captain Commando is a Capcom classic that I've never played before in the arcade, but this is my first time getting a chance to play Captain Commando, and it's really fun. It's sort of like it's another standard Final Fight-esque beat 'em up, but it's got some fun elements where you can pick up like weapons and you get like laser guns or rocket launchers. It's pretty cool. Like it's just sort of a fun spin on the whole thing, and the animations look really great and the characters designs are fun. Captain Commando is pretty solid. I'd never heard of Battle Circuit before. It's sort of like a generic Final Fight type beat 'em up. This one actually isn't that fun to play. This is something I'll probably never really play again, honestly. Alright, so next up is a game called Armored Warriors. This is something I also have never heard of before. Same sort of thing, Capcom side-scrolling beat 'em up. But this is neat because it's got a twist where you get to play mechs. You got a few different options to choose from, and this is definitely pretty cool. It looks really great, and it's got this cool little system where you can get new weapons and upgrades for your mech as you go on. Honestly, really anything with mechs is right up my alley, so this is something I am definitely going to be playing with in the future. This would be fun to play with some other people online. Then, of course, you have Strider. Strider is Strider. It is one of the most difficult and frustrating side-scrollers of all time. I remember playing this on the Sega Genesis back in the day. I've never beaten it. I never will beat it. This game is just a grueling experience only for the most battle-hardened of video game players. This one just, I don't have the patience for it. I love Strider, but I hate Strider. It's one of those games. I don't know how much anybody can say about Final Fight, except it's Final Fight. It's one of the classic side-scrolling beat-em-ups from back in the day. You got 3 characters to choose from, one of which is the mayor of the town who just cruises around the city with one suspender and no shirt, taking out the trash. It's Final Fight. This is a classic arcade beat-em-up, and it's one of the games that taught me if you find meat on the street under a trash can, you eat it, and it's good for you. King of Dragons is another side-scrolling beat-em-up I've never heard of before. It's sort of similar to that old Dungeons and Dragons beat-em-up that's much better than this, but I can see myself messing around with this. You get your 5 classes, very D&D. It's pretty fun. It's not great. It's not going to set the world on fire, but it's solid. Saturday Night Slam Masters is something I've never heard of before either. It's like a wrestling game, but it's also like a side-scrolling beat-em-up. It's a little weird for me. It sort of moves in like the same sort of parameters as a side-scroller does. With it's like a pseudo 3D, 2D space, but it's also a little, I don't know, the controls don't seem very responsive. I'm sure this is something that is more fun if you get the hang of it, but I'm not particularly interested in it. It looks fun, like the characters are very colorful. It reminds me of like old school 80s wrestling, which obviously is the point, but I don't think this one's for me. So with the Capcom sports game, this is probably something I'm not going to mess with too much. The basketball game is pretty fun. It's kind of reminiscent of NBA Jam. It's like a little like generic version of it, but it's not bad. It's very responsive. I might mess with this a little bit. This would be probably fun to play with a couple of friends. Street Fighter is, of course, Street Fighter. It's the title cabinet here, and Street Fighter is great. I'm not particularly awesome at Street Fighter. It's one of those ones that I always enjoyed as a kid, but I gravitated more towards Mortal Kombat myself. But it's Street Fighter. You have to have Street Fighter. The Street Fighter 2, the Championship Edition, is, of course, my preferred version of this game. I always liked Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but, like, it's, I don't know, there's just too many characters, and it's just it still feels very old, but it's a little faster. I don't know, like Street Fighter is a weird game series for me. I think they kind of got better as they went on. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 probably being like the peak of that game's excellence and also weaknesses. Like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has arguably the worst soundtrack ever in a video game, and the background levels. It's weird how they made like a Marvel vs. Capcom was so great as far as making it seem like the characters belonged in the backgrounds and like they actually had tied into the games, whereas Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was just like a weird mess that is beloved by so many, but is also such a flawed game, even though it has the best roster in arguably fighting game history. And then one of my absolute favorite things that is on this cabinet in general is Super Puzzle Fighter 2. That was a game I absolutely adored. Back in the day when I was a kid, I used to play that game so much. It's one of my favorite puzzle games, and it was a game that was also notoriously difficult to find on consoles. Like, it was released on the PlayStation and I think the Saturn, and I used to have it on PlayStation, and then over the years I just, I sold it or traded it or whatever, and it's one of those games that I've always regretted because it's so hard to find now. And all of a sudden, like, after looking for it everywhere, now I can just find it everywhere. Like, I just found it on the Nintendo Switch the other day, so it's like an arcade perfect port on the Switch.
Perfect!
And also, I was so surprised to find that it was coming in on this cabinet. I was very excited about that. I love Super Puzzle Fighter 2. That's a game that is going to get a lot of play for me on this cabinet. I'm really excited about that. Now, it's a great variety of games. We have some, like, really good beat-em-ups here. And we've got some sports games here, and we have like two or three shooters. It's really awesome the amount of diversity that's in this cabinet. Like, one of the things I liked about the Street Fighter 2 Legacy was not even the amount. Like, I think it had too many Street Fighter games. Like, I'm never gonna play the original Street Fighter, or I don't need 6 different versions of Street Fighter 2. Like, this kind of gives you like exactly the Street Fighter 2 games that you want. Like, it just sort of gives you the best versions of those games. The Super Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition is like my go-to Street Fighter 2 game. It's fun to see how that game has aged over the years. I think it's a little slow. It's a little clunky, but it is kind of the charm and the fun of it. It's also mercilessly difficult. That game just is rough. I'm not going to play anybody online in that game at all, because I will just get my ass handed to me and it will be embarrassing. And I can't deal with that sort of blow to my ego. The reason I went with the Shinku Hadoken Edition is because I like the blue coloring on this one so much more than the Yoga Flame Edition. So we should point that out. There are 2 different editions to this, the Yoga Flame and the Shinku Hadoken, which the one I got, I've only been able to find it on a website called shophippo.com. That's the only place I know of that's carrying it. Everything else I've seen has been selling the Yoga Flame Edition, which I still think looks cool, but I just like the control deck on this one. Like, the artwork on this one is just so much more interesting to me. The control deck has a really cool map edition, and the way the fighters are displayed on the monitor is really cool. I know it's not a traditional Street Fighter cabinet, but honestly, I think all of the Street Fighter cabinets look like trash. I don't like the way any of them look. Like Big Blue, like the original Champion Edition, and even the last one, the Legacy 2, had that sort of like just like very 90s yellow purple edition. Like, I've never found any of the Street Fighter arcades to be particularly good looking. So this edition to me was the one that spoke the most to me and the one I enjoy the most visually. So having this in the arcade now is just kind of a nice visual treat, honestly. It's a good end cabinet, I think. So, you get the nice MK30th on one side, wrapping it off with Street Fighter 2 in the end. I think they're both just very visually interesting to look at. So, some other visuals, and my only minor nitpick in this entire cabinet, honestly, is the marquee on this. It's similar to MK30th or Terminator 2, where you actually have a slide-in piece of acrylic, which I'm loving that system. I feel like I'm getting the hang of putting it together a little bit more. That's like the hardest part of these now is like the way that gets laid out, especially with the control deck. It's a little tough to put that together when you're getting the side panel on. It's just so much more like fidgeting around to get it all lined up perfectly. But
Perfect.
I really like that system a lot more. But the acrylic in this one, it's not... So it's better than the Terminator 2 stock was. It's not as good as the MK30th is, which is pretty perfect. That's like the only marquee I have not replaced and will not replace is my MK30th. I think that one is like perfect. But the Street Fighter 2 one is okay. It comes through, like the light comes through fine, the colors are vibrant and rich, but the image itself, like the image quality itself, isn't as crisp as the MK30th. So I was speaking to Szabo the other day, and he was saying that he was looking to do Super Street Fighter 2 legacies for the acrylics. So if you've gotten his stuff before, he makes amazing marquees. I've replaced my Terminator 2 with him, and it was such a night and day difference. I have a video of that in my Terminator 2 review, which you should check out in the description below. But yeah, his work is great, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think I would, if he puts out a new one, I would probably replace that, and just to get it like that much better. But this new setup they have with the marquees, it gives it more of like a traditional arcade feel because the old arcades were like pieces of acrylic with the light behind it. The only thing that makes these a little different is that they don't get quite as bright. So next to my Retro 530 marquees, they're a little bit dimmer, but they still look fine. They still look great. If that's the only concession we're making at this point with these newer cabinets, like the build just seems to be getting better. They seem to be listening to customer feedback a lot more, and I'm really appreciating that. It's nice to see that, some minor gripes aside, they're starting to, listen to customer feedback, implement these changes, and start to make products that are getting pretty awesome right out of the box, honestly. Any of these changes that I typically make are just for my own personal usage and the way I like my art cabinets to sound or look. And let's just go into some of that, I guess. Let's talk about some of these changes. So one of the interesting additions to this cabinet that I thought was a little unique was the control deck comes stock with a 4-way gate in it for the control stick, but they also include an 8-way octagonal gate similar to the ones that you can get from some of the third-party retailers out there, and it's nice. It's nice that they give you that option. I don't know why they didn't just install the 8-way gate, because for Street Fighter that makes more sense, but I went ahead and changed it out. It's really easy. It takes just takes a few minutes to change the gates out. It's a relatively easy process. You just unscrew the back. You have to pinch these little parts on the original gate. You pull it off, and then you just pop the new one right in. And then it just gives you an 8-way rotation instead of a 4-way square rotation like you would normally get with the standard. Just a little bit more easy for maneuvering, like the kind of moves that you pull off in Street Fighter. I didn't upgrade the control sticks in this one. My last Street Fighter Legacy, I updated to Sanwa joysticks. I just kept the standard stock Arcade1Up joysticks in this one. They feel great. They feel just as good as those old Sanwas did. So I'm not going to pretend to be like that huge of a snob with the controls. Like, I'm pulling off all the moves I'd be able to normally pull off with Street Fighter. It's very responsive. It just feels great. Like, I don't have any issues with the controls here either. Just another thing they just seem to be paying a little bit more attention to. The parts just seem to be feeling a little bit more solid. It just feels really great. I didn't feel the need to swap out the Sanwas. If you're a hardcore Street Fighter person, you might want to do that. If that works for you, do it. But if you're just a casual player, or you might not know the difference anyway, just stick with the stocks. I would recommend swapping out the gates, and it's cool that they give you that option. But yeah, just stick with the standards. They feel great. I haven't had any issues whatsoever. So one of the other mods I do for my cabinets, when it's part of the process of installing the coin doors, is I always put new vinyl on the front. It depends upon what the cabinet is. Sometimes I get a little creative with it. Sometimes I just make it a solid piece of black. That's kind of been what I've been doing with all the fighters, like Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, Street Fighter. Like they're not particularly like visually interesting. So the front of those I've just been keeping black. But I always put a new piece of vinyl over it because since they've been adding coin doors in, they have like little holes in them to put their coin doors on there. So I cover it with vinyl just to cover up any of those holes. So when I put my own coin door over it, it doesn't really affect the look. And, I don't have holes in my front panels. So obviously you don't want that. So I'm going to show you guys how to put vinyl on. It's a relatively easy process. I get all my vinyl from Tyler over at Arcade Graphics. So shout out to Tyler. He does really great work. He's a notoriously difficult dude to get a hold of, and his timelines are a little slow. But he's a great dude, and if you just email him on Facebook or something like that, he always gets right back to you. He's very busy. He's like one of the major producers of vinyl for the community, and he does great work. I highly recommend him. So that being said, we're going to dive into some of his work. First thing you want to do with one of these is grab yourself some rubbing alcohol and clean the surface of the kick plate. You're going to take your vinyl and place it over the front of the kick plate. And you're going to take some tape and secure it. I usually use Scotch tape. You should probably use like painter's tape or something, or something like that. But I always just use Scotch tape, and it does the trick. It's a little harder to get off the front of the vinyl, but it's fine. It works. So you're going to want to flip it over to the front, and you're going to want to gently peel a corner of it up to the point where you have your tape marked. You just want to be careful not to get any creases. You're going to take an X-Acto knife, cut down the edge of it, peel off that extra paper backing, flip the panel around, and then smoothly use a squeegee to lightly press it onto the kick plate. You're going to take off the tape, flip it around, and you're going to sort of do the same thing here. You're going to peel the excess paper backing off the other edge of it, and then you're going to use the squeegee again to smooth out any air bubbles or just bring it in contact with the surface. And you want to make sure that you're doing this gently and evenly because you don't want to wind up with any creases. Those are a little harder to get out. But there you go. Now you just cut off any excess with the X-Acto. Just line it up, press in there real tight, and get it off there. And now if you have any air bubbles, you can poke a little hole in them with an X-Acto and then just squeegee over the surface, and that'll get rid of any air bubbles and smooth it right out. And there you go. That's a new kick plate with some vinyl on it. Now you're going to want to measure out the specs for the coin door. I usually measure about 4.5 inches down, and then I put the T-square underneath the bottom of it to get it flat, and then I measure in the center. And then once I have it measured properly, I'll use a Sharpie to color in the circles of the parts I'm going to cut out. And then I'll put little markings on the edge, the top edge of each, just so I can make sure to line that back up when I'm done cutting the holes. And then you just drill through, get yourself a drill bit, go right through the kick plate. And then use the biggest possible drill bit I have, but then I have to switch up to a smaller one for the lock. The lock is a little bit smaller of a hole. Vacuum up your mess. Now we're going to take off the double-sided tape on the back of the coin door. Using that T-square to make sure everything's lined up nice and evenly. So you get a nice flat surface, not crooked. Line it up with the holes. Put in the lock. And that just punches right through, and you can secure it on the back with a little fastener. Then the coin door buttons. I love these buttons. They're so great. I love the style of them. I love that you can like push them in too. It's a lot of fun. They secure the same way that the coin door, that the lock does. You can just push them. Get your doors. Now I use alcohol again to get rid of the silver Sharpie that I used to line things up. You gotta press it in a little there, but they clean that up. You attach the lights that he supplies you into the back of the coin doors. Then you're going to use a Y splitter to plug into the power, and then the coin door lights plug into the Y splitter, so you don't have to splice anything. Now for the audio, you're going to want to unscrew all of the original speakers. Get these crappy speakers out of here. Compare the size of the other ones. So much bigger. You're going to want to drill holes into the new speakers because they're not going to line up quite the same. And then you're going to screw in the new speakers. Next, you are going to take our subwoofer, the Logitech Z313. Great little subwoofer. I'm just going to unpack everything. So this next part's important. You're going to actually, after you clear out the cables, you're going to use your wire clippers to disconnect the wires from the speakers that come with it. Because you need this wire kit that comes with it. For some reason, you can't use regular speaker wire. Otherwise, you get a monaural sound. It's weird. I don't know why, but this wire that comes with it, you need to use this. So you're going to strip it to get to the wires beneath it. There should be a red and a white, and the other one I think is a black and a white. One's positive, one's negative. You're just going to strip these wires now to get to the wires underneath. And this is what you're going to connect your speakers to. We're actually going to connect speaker clips to it first. But after you do that, you're going to twist the wires just to make it a little bit more manageable. Because after we do that, we're going to take our wire clips. Now we're going to bend the wire in half, just because you don't need it to be that long. Makes it a little more manageable to get in there. Put on our wire clips. And now these are going to attach directly to the speakers. We're going to take our wire cutters and clamp those on. Clamp those on nice and tight. And we're just going to do the same thing for the other one. You want to give yourself a good amount of slack too, so that they're separate enough so you can maneuver them onto the speakers easy enough. And then we just have to do the same thing now to the other side. Give them a little tug, make sure they're on there. But same thing as we just did, because each side is going to go to a different speaker. So now we've got our speakers just about ready. Normally these would be the same color, but I ran out of the smaller ones, so I had to use bigger ones here. Well, you just connect these, the same lineup, positive, negative, onto the speaker ports. And now this wire is the wire that would go into the speakers on the kit. So now it's the same thing. Now they're going to the speakers in the kit, and this plugs into the back of the subwoofer. And then there's a cable that goes from the subwoofer into the PCB now. So it's essentially the same thing. You're just using the speakers now for the arcade. You're just upgrading the arcade speakers. Get that back into the cabinet. Lines up nice and perfectly. They're not too big for this new setup is great because you don't have to worry about that. You're going to drill a hole into the back of the panel of the arcade now, because this is how you're going to get the subwoofer cable through there, the power cable. You secure in the audio cable to the back of the PCB. Take the back of the panel, put it back on. Then you're going to take the subwoofer control, double-sided tape that to the top of the cabinet, and that's your power on-off switch. You can control the volume that way or through the cabinet still. Alright guys, so I think that's going to do it for today. This is a little bit longer a video than I normally put out, but I really wanted to do the upgrade portion of this, and I figured what better way to do it than with a fresh new cabinet. Finally get a chance to sit down, go over the process step by step, and put a little bit more effort into the process, the filmmaking process. And I've just been so busy that it's been hard to do in the past, and I really just wanted to sit down with this and get this out there for you guys, because I think it's a lot of fun to customize these and make them your own. Especially the sound system portion. Like getting a subwoofer in there, it just makes all the difference. And upgrading the speakers, so you never have to worry about those stock speakers that don't sound that great. Sounds a little tinny. But making these upgrades is just sort of, it's part of the fun for me, really. Like I really like these as like a showpiece. I really like sometimes I'll just turn these on and just walk around a room and just look at them. It just brings me back to being a kid and just hanging out in the arcade and playing all these games, and all these great memories that just come flooding back to you. And I just part of that for me is like the look and feel and sound of these, and getting them to be as I remember them, or trying to make these little visual upgrades to make it feel more appealing to me. And I think my arcade right now is kind of at the point where I really don't have any more room. I want to keep getting more, but especially with these rumors of a tapper, what am I supposed to do about that? Tapper, that game's already on the MK30th. But if they put out a dedicated tapper cabinet that looks like the old tapper, that's just I don't know. That's reason to knock down a wall or something for me. I don't know. I'd try to find space for that. That would be awesome. Also, guys, Smash TV, please. Can we get Smash TV? I'll throw out a couch to fit Smash TV in here. I need me some Smash TV. So before I go, one final thought. As many of you may know who follow me regularly, or if you don't follow me and you're just meeting me for the first time, I'm a filmmaker here based out of New Hampshire. A few years ago, I released a film that I'd made with a group of friends from childhood called My Name is Jonah. It's a feature-length documentary film. We signed a contract with Cinedigm Distribution, and it's available to watch on things like Amazon, Xbox, Apple TV, Tubi, you name it. And now it's available for free here on YouTube to watch as well. So I would really appreciate if you guys checked it out. It's that film is a culmination of about 10 years of hard work between all of us. It's something that continues to dominate our lives to this day. And this project that we started back in 2009 is still kicking around, and now you can watch it on your platform of choice, and that's pretty cool. So I would like to share that with you guys and check it out. Let me know what you think of it. If you think it's terrible, please let me know in the comments below. If you loved it, please let me know in the comments below. Either way, comment below, like, subscribe, do all the things. I think since I'm not really going to be purchasing any new arcades, I say that, but who knows. I think the next thing I might do a tour video. I've been getting some requests for people to see a tour because you guys only ever see what's behind me, but I've got some more creeping around here, and since I swap them out so often that the lineup's never the same, so I've never really done a tour video, so I think I might do that next. What do you think? You want to see that? If you want to see a tour video, let me know in the comments below, and I might make that happen. But thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.